and welcome to the Good Girl Confessional. I am your host, Sandy Lowries, and of course, the Good Girl Confessional is brought to you by WB40, Women Beyond 40 magazine. Today in the podcast, I am so excited to introduce everyone to Sandy Davies, who is the founder of Happy Pause Balm, Happy Pause Menopause. She is a vibrant, fun, and a lovely human who has created something for women going through menopause, but her product, Happy Pause, does more than that. Based in Far North Queensland, we affectionately call each other Far North Queensland Sandy and Melbourne Sandy. So welcome to the podcast, Sandy Davies.
Sandy, I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here, Sandy from Far North Queensland, talking to this Sandy all the way down here in Melbourne. So welcome.
Thank you very much. It really is just an absolute honor to be on the Good Girl Confessional.
Oh, we're honored to have you here, and I'm super excited. I'm only sorry it took so long for us to get together to have this chat.
I think that sometimes natural timing always brings people together at the right time.
I love your attitude. You're amazing. So I think you are fabulous, and I have definitely, by the way, tried your product. And for those watching on YouTube, you can see it here because it is amazing. But first of all, before we go into, I wanted you to tell our listeners how you started Happy Pause and basically what brought you to Australia from the US and the journey since.
Oh. Well, what brought me to Happy Pause was I shouldn't say unfortunately, perimenopause. And I've decided we have to stop thinking of perimenopause and menopause as a negative thing. It's a beautiful rite of passage and kind of a rite of passage into an era of freedom. But making my way to that era of freedom, I had a lot of trouble with intimate dryness and went to my GP again and again and again with no result, with just, oh, that's perimenopause. And the final result at probably the maybe 8th GP consultation was, well, maybe we could try counseling. And I was absolutely convinced that counseling was not going to fix my dry vagina.
Praise be, sister.
And I find that now that I'm interacting with so many women through Happy Pause, that is so often the GP recommendation is counseling or antidepressants, which are very, very valuable and very, very beneficial, but not always for something physiological. So I ended up at the chemist. I now know to always look and read the ingredients, but I was given a multi-day pessary that would dissolve in my intimate region. And I had a very severe allergic reaction because I have sensitive skin. And I just had this aha moment of there's got to be something better. And when I started looking around, there wasn't. So I formulated and created Happy Pause. So that's how I've gotten to here today, of providing something to make us feel good down there without it being something that is a huge application. So many things take between 18 and 30 mil of application. They ooze out in clumps. It's gross. You no longer feel womanly or like your natural self. So I created something, like showed even the little box. It only takes the tiniest pearl and it lasts and lasts and lasts. So you feel good. And if you feel good down there, you feel good everywhere. So
it is fabulous. And wait, it's like an unboxing. Look at this. I'm going to open my packet here because this is amazing. Look at this beautiful little container. Like, it is so beautiful. And can I tell you, it smells bloody divine. It's so good. It's, I don't know if people can see, there's like a little lid on there, so it's all safe and whatever, and it's beautiful. Mm-hmm. It's, and it packs a punch, this tiny little jar. I can tell you right now, I've been using it and I swear by it.
Oh, thank you so much. It was such an amazing experience to finally just hit the home run and know that this is it. And it was quite funny because it's what's always been done, I tried to create something that was very, very liquid with a large amount. And then I was like, hang on, this is just the same as everything else. There's got to be a way for us to do this with something much smaller. And I love the way it makes your skin feel. I love the way it stays on your skin and absorbs into your skin and just makes you feel like your natural self.
I think what's really beautiful about it as well is while you started out making this, as you said, because you were facing perimenopause yourself, really there's a whole lot of ways that you could use this, right? Because it's not just for vaginal dryness.
No, it works wonders for vulval and vaginal dryness. But I've also discovered now that it provides a lot of comfort if you're going through chemo. I never knew that you would have dryness flares with type 1 diabetes, but we do. It also provides a lot of comfort for women the week after their cycle if they struggle with endo. And I must say that that's probably been one of the most validating things, that it's not only benefiting our generation, but it's providing comfort to the generation below us. And it is absolutely not about the sex, and being sexy and feeling sexy is not about the actual sex, but it does also help with making sex or self-pleasure so much more enjoyable, like it was in our 20s before our lining began to thin.
Yeah, and I think that that's really important. You make a really important point with that because, so much is going on when you hit perimenopause and then menopause. And it's not just dryness. So for every woman, me talking to so many women, what I found out is so different for every woman. But you're right, because that lining starts to actually thin as well, that sex can be really painful for women, even if they don't necessarily have vaginal dryness.
Well, and the thing I've discovered is that quite often we have maybe vaginal dryness and intimate dryness without knowing that we do, because only 20% of us have it severe enough that we seek out treatment. And the rest of us, as our walls begin to thin, we just maybe suffer more micro tears or more irritation when we try to swim, or irritation after we get up for a middle of the night wee, and then are restless to go back to sleep. And we don't ever address it as dryness. And that even happened with me going to my GP. And then I was like, it is dryness. And it is a thing. I've discovered an author in the UK now that has written a book called Me and My Menopausal Vagina. And I loved it because it was like this light bulb that, yes, so many of us are going through this. And if it's not severe, we don't actually associate it.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. And one of the big things, as you know, because you have also written an article in WB40 magazine. So thank you. You're epic. And thanks for being part of the WB40 fam. But one of the things that we try and highlight in that magazine all the time is to talk about menopause really openly. And as you say, to really change the narrative around this kind of negative kind of conversation that tends to go on, or it being hidden. I can't remember my mum, for example, ever talking about her journey through menopause, and yet she was this hippie flower power child, and she was all about women's rights, and so she was quite open about talking about sex in our house and all of this stuff, but not menopause. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, the M word was just a bad word, and that generation as well of our mums, they just got on with it, and then they never thought to talk to us about it. And I love now just trying to demystify the M word. And I love that Sarah Jane Adams was on Big Brother Australia. She talked so openly about menopause is not a dirty word. And I just loved seeing her representing all of us on national TV, even though I'm not usually a reality TV person. I just love what she's done to get that word out there, not as a bad thing, but as a celebratory second spring.
Absolutely. And to see that women who are in our age demographic and going through menopause can be, and most often are, like really vibrant and really happy and living full lives and doing really great stuff.
But I just find, well, many, many years ago, I lost my brother to suicide. And I discovered that there was a huge stigma around suicide. And we were in business down in Southeast Queensland, and we actually had a long-term customer pull my husband aside, thinking he was helping him understand Australian culture and suicide. And we'd been Aussies for over 20 years, but because we have accents, He just thought we needed a bit of education, and pulled him aside and he whispered to him, he said, your wife is just a little bit too open about the suicide that happened with her brother. And, she maybe shouldn't speak about it because it could be bad for your business. And
wow,
we were taken aback. And by then we'd already had that many experiences by having been open about it and speaking about it and using the S word, opening up pathways for healing for other people. That we thought we're never backing down. And it probably actually made me even talk about it more, so that if someone that felt shame about suicide could hear someone just talking openly about it and embracing the journey, maybe that shame could disappear and they could just celebrate and remember all the lovely moments of the person that had gone. And it's a bit the same now with menopause. I was so excited to be doing a local video about how different people in our region had been resilient through COVID. And it was phenomenal. I was so excited. I was ready. And then literally I was being counted in. And then the director went, no, wait, cut. I should just say to you, with your business, because it's a bit sensitive, can you just not mention the name of your business or what you actually do?
No way.
He went, roll. And I was kind of like, hang on.
That's your business.
Every other business has been talking about their business. And all of a sudden, right as we're rolling, you're telling me no. So I just off the fly kind of used different, generic descriptors. And in the middle, I said menopause, not thinking that menopause was a bad word. And I could see him panic. And the interviewer actually started chuckling, and you can see then his shoulders chuckling because I said the M word. And I was like, right, menopause is the same. We are going to make sure that we use this word loud and proud. It's not a bad thing.
Oh, well, you know what? First of all, I really do want to say I'm so very sorry to hear about your brother. And thank you for sharing that with us here in the Confessional, because a lot of people are incredibly impacted with mental health issues, people who have lost family members, and obviously beautiful listeners that we have who have gone through their own journey and have felt those thoughts and are thankfully with us, but have gone through difficult times. And so you're right, there's such a stigma attached to that. And I find too, the really interesting thing, although there's a lot more talk about mental health issues and suicide prevention and suicide going on these days, we still have such a long way to go to remove the stigma. And as you say, the shame of that. A lot of people still really struggle with that. So I love that you are incredibly open about that. And I'm sorry, what is your brother's name?
So my brother's name is Gary.
Gary. So,
yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing your story about Gary, because I do think it's helpful and important. And especially, as you say, for you to be able to remember all the beautiful, happy moments with your brother and about your brother, that's kind of important too. And I think when we start to shut down those conversations, something really beautiful as well gets lost. And as you say, not being able to talk about your brother, that's difficult, So well done you. And I'm glad that you talk about it. I don't know who the gentleman was who felt the need to pull you and your husband aside and give you that advice, but I would say definitely like your good self. I am a big believer in open, honest conversations about stuff, even if it's difficult. And I think in sharing those stories, you actually build a community of people rather than shut a community down. And so thank you, Sandy, because you're a pretty incredible human. And thank you so much for talking about menopause, the big M, and getting it out there and not feeling like you have to be squashed all the time. I find it really interesting. I keep thinking things are getting better around that, and maybe because I'm in this kind of arena of talking about it all the time myself, that I assume everyone does. And, you're probably in the same boat, because this is your entire business is, this beautiful balm here. But I think what's really interesting is years ago when I started, I was a blogger, and I used to write about dating and sex after the age of 40. And I remember writing a couple of things and sharing them on Facebook, on the Facebook page for the Good Girl Confessional all those years ago. And I actually got shut down several times for using the word vagina. Right. And I was like, really? I wrote this article, Love Me, Love My Vagina. And I got shut down. And so as soon as Facebook put me back up, I put it back up again. And 2 days later, they shut me down. And I just kept doing it because I was like, well, I think this is actually quite funny now. But it's just this kind of very archaic thing that is still going on for women in our age demographic, but definitely for all women, us not being able to show our nipples, for example, or not being able to say the word vagina or vulva, not being able to talk about menopause openly. And I don't know, do you find do you think different states deal with that differently? Like you're in far north Queensland and I'm here in Melbourne.
Well, I guess we always look at you Southerners down south, as we say, as probably being much more progressive and open, and having those conversations more freely, because there maybe are still, I don't know, a few divides up here. But then having said that, I think as a collective all across the continent, we're all raising the bar and we're all having these conversations much more openly, and it's much more fluid now. Because I'm finding, well, having said that though, I guess plenty of people laughed at me, and there's still plenty of blokes that just think it's really good crack. But having said that, I've had some amazing men. Well, I actually had the man that helped me do the stabilizing testing is a herpetologist. And he just thought it was so amazing. And he was the first bloke that didn't laugh. I absolutely loved it. And he said, I just wish this had been around for my mom when my mom was going through menopause. It's like, yes, right on. That's the message. We all want to be able to talk about it, not just women in our age group or people in our age group that are going through it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I learned through you, and you did touch on it before, is I didn't actually realize, and I feel terrible that I didn't realize this, that women going through chemotherapy are thrown often into, I knew they get sometimes thrown into early menopause, but it didn't occur to me that in going through chemo, that physiologically you're affected in so many ways, and one of them is dryness. And obviously that can be a woman of any age who's going through chemo. So was that kind of, obviously you didn't start it for that reason, but was that a huge highlight for you when you realized that it could be helpful for people going through chemo?
Well, the cartoon, the Grinch Who Stole Christmas,
Yes.
When his heart grows like 10 times too big. That was me. Like originally I thought if I can even just help one other woman, and one of my mom's best friends, my Aunt Pat, struggled with dryness after menopause for the rest of her life. And then she developed Sjögren's syndrome, and Sjögren's syndrome stops you being able to produce saliva and body fluids.
Right.
And she just struggled in abject misery with that up until her death, because the only liquid treatments for that were so expensive in the States. They're even still a bit expensive here, but they do have a bit of PBS subsidy. And I was so sad. It just kind of broke my heart that I was driven to create Happy Pause when I hit menopause, and not before for some of the people I love to have gone. I would have loved to have been able to have created it when Aunt Pat was on this planet and eased some of her suffering. So when I discovered that this thing that I created for perimenopause had such a wider appeal, it was like winning the lotto. I'm not just helping one other woman. There are now hundreds upon hundreds of women that are benefiting from it, and not just in peri.
Yeah, exactly. And what's really interesting is I actually gave some of this to someone who's really important to me, and a young woman in her 20s who I had no idea until she said, oh, I suffer with dryness after my period. I had no idea. Right. And so now that's a whole new audience of younger women in their 20s and 30s. And because I didn't go through that when I was going, having my period, I didn't actually ever think that it happened to other people. Right. And so when we know, we know. But it's quite extraordinary to me that, I know that necessity is the mother of invention,
Mm.
but you've kind of opened the floodgates for a whole lot of things for women to feel better about themselves.
Yeah, well, and so much of it is about feeling better about yourself. And when you can have something that alleviates the dryness with just a tiny bit and not this huge vial, that just in itself helps you feel better because you're your natural self and you have a bit better spring in your step, and yeah, you just feel good. And
You really do. And it smells beautiful because it's basically the major component in this is coconut oil. All right. And it smells like coconut.
yeah, so it's just a light natural scent. And I don't know, I'm a bit of a sucker for doing good, I suppose. So I love that even the coconut oil is sourced from a CSIRO initiative in the Solomon Islands to empower and provide an economic base for villages. And it's a direct expulsion of the coconut oil. So it's not out drying or having rodents crawling all over it. It is literally going from the tree to the direct expulsion process within 2 hours, and then packed
Wow.
and on its way back to us in Australia. And I just love some of those science initiatives from our research bodies like the CSIRO.
Wow, that's incredible. That is so cool. What I love is one of your other brilliant initiatives of your business is a percentage of your sales goes to the wonderful Melbourne Period Project. And as you know, we had the lovely Donna Stolzenberg, yay, who is the founder of the Melbourne Period Project and the CEO of the National Homeless Collective here in the podcast as well. But so you actually give a percentage of sales to the Melbourne Period Project, which for those that don't know, tell us a little bit about the Melbourne Period Project.
Yeah, so every quarter I send off a portion of sales to the Melbourne Period Project. And Donna is just so amazing and tireless with the work she does. And what they do is they try to alleviate period poverty with anyone struggling with homelessness or just displaced from their home, and just giving everyone dignity through not having that fear or anxiety when your period comes and you are in uncertainty. And it's just a magical process of empowerment, because even the little things like that are actually big things. So kind of still back to that same thing. If you feel good down there, you feel good everywhere. It is kind of our core, or our sacred heart in some ways. And we have to feel good from there to spread that goodness elsewhere. And just have so much admiration and respect for what she does. And back before the project, the Happy Pause Balm was even pot ready and launch ready, when I was just in the very, very early concept stages and thinking, I want this to give back and I want to have a pay it forward as well as the accessing ethical ingredients. And I rang Donna, and I don't know what encouraged me, being little old me up in far north Queensland, to ring someone who's so busy down in Melbourne. I rang her and she said, wow, that just sounds amazing. As soon as it is ready to go, send us some, and we want to know and we want to be involved. And I just sat down and cried afterwards. By the time I finally regained my composure, my husband and I had a glass of champagne just to celebrate that amazing sense of encouragement from halfway across the continent.
Yeah. And she is a remarkable and extraordinary woman. She is, of course, the Victorian Australian of the Year, and so well deserved. She is just extraordinary and so giving. When I had her on the podcast, we were having this chat. What should have, I think, been a half an hour chat, because she's, as you so pointed out, she is crazy busy. She seriously, I think we talked for like 2 hours, and I think we could have talked for like maybe 5 hours. She's just a fascinating and incredible and such an inspirational chick. She's just incredible.
Yeah, I was so excited then months later when she became the Australian of the Year for Victoria. That was just such an amazing acknowledgement for all that tireless work.
Yeah, really. And that's the thing, she doesn't ever take a break. I don't know, people maybe don't realize that. There's no weekends off and holidays for her. She just
No.
keeps going. So she's pretty extraordinary. So it's funny because we're in the confessional. I thought I have to tell you this confession. Do you know, every time I smell this now, I think sex. So that's my confession. I do. There's like a psychological thing now. So I go, oh, hello. There you go. That's my confession in the confessional today.
Well, I actually have a regular user in the UK that was struggling with the severest type of dryness, and it was really debilitating. And she reckons she can't live without it now, which is so lovely to hear, just that it's given her that much comfort. But the thing that's the funniest with her, very similar to your confession, her husband calls it cocoa vag. so
I love it. Hashtag cocoa vag.
Yeah. Because it was, sweetie, can we have a bit of cocoa vag? And that's his foreplay now.
I love it. That's hilarious. Oh, I'm going to put that as my hashtag. I quite like it. That's so funny. Hey, I was recently listening to an episode of Women Who Sarcast, a podcast over in the US, and you were a guest on their podcast, and we're huge fans of Kathy Barron and their team over at Women Who Podcast as well. They're incredible. But I was laughing when I was listening to the episode because you being, an expat American, I guess, and her being in California, you got her to taste Vegemite.
Yes, it was so fun.
It's a very strange thing, isn't it? That it's very much an Australian thing. I mean, I know that in New Zealand and in the UK, they tend to have Marmite's different and Promite. And look at me screwing up my nose at that. Most of the world is screwing up their nose at Vegemite. I'm a Vegemite kid, but what I loved as well was that you dug up the actual theme song for Vegemite. And that took me so back to my childhood because we were raised on that.
Yeah, it was so exciting to do a taste test of Vegemite with Kathy. It was so fun. But my initiation into Vegemite wasn't quite as pleasant as that experience. Because you did ask at the start how I ended up in Australia.
Yeah.
I ended up in Australia on a Rotary Fellowship. So I came here as an international ambassador of goodwill to the University of New South Wales to do my master's degree. And part of the requirement was living in an international communal house that was on campus. So half Australian grad students, half international students. And the Aussie students would actually pounce on any of us new Americans. And even though we were grad students, it was like, being in a high school cafeteria line. And so they'd say, oh, come on, we'll show you how to get your breakfast. And you'd have all these blokes hanging around you, and you think, oh, it's so sweet. They're giving me so much attention. That's so nice. They want me to get settled in and they really care. Nah. They just wanted to take all the new Americans through the line and say, oh, this is Vegemite. Vegemite for us is like peanut butter for you. So you do your toast and you put it on real thick.
Oh, God.
And then you get into the queue and there's cordial. And they say, oh, yeah, this is like your Kool-Aid. You want a few glasses. So you do neat cordial because they're all telling you that's how you do it. And you sit down at the table and you wonder why everybody's sitting at your table. And then you take this bite of Vegemite this thick and then you skull it with cordial. And then you realize that both are just such an absolute shock and they're all rolling on the floor with laughter. Victory!
That's awful. That's terrible. We're supposed to bring you over to the dark side, not like turn you against it. So, so tell me now, have you developed a taste for Vegemite?
Well, I have, but it took nearly 25 years. I would always just eat it to be polite if I was asked, but I'd never really developed a taste. And then we moved up from Southeast Queensland and I went to work for the mob. So I went to work for Guvialangi Elders. And you can't work for elders without having a taste for Vegemite. It's just mandatory. And I found after probably about 6 weeks, I just got to the point where I was actually looking forward to getting Vegemite ready for meetings or morning teas. And yeah, so I'm very, very grateful to the elders that pushed me into a Vegemite corner and I walked out the other side a huge fan, finally, decades later.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. Like I like my Vegemite as scrapings, we call it in my household. Scrapings of Vegemite. You don't lay it on thick.
No.
I can tell you right now, though, it is a extremely good hangover cure.
Yes.
Vegemite toast.
Yeah, that vitamin B kick just gets you through.
There's just nothing quite like it. So your business launched, which is amazing and it's brilliant and it's going great guns. I wanted to say congratulations because you are currently nominated for the Oz Mumpreneur Awards and also for the Raw Success Awards. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. And I also want to shout back at you, straight back at you, because you were the Wildcat of the Year last year with the Roar Awards. And those awards were happening just as I was getting ready to launch Happy Pause. And I just got so excited watching you win and just got so much inspiration from it. And it was just like, yes, we're fearless and we've got this. And it made me really set my sights on, yeah, I'm going to be there next year. That's going to be me getting my new start for something. Yeah. So I'm really, really excited to be nominated. And I love how far I've come in a year. And I love that you were there as a bit of an inspiration and a role model for all of us that were getting started during COVID.
Oh, thank you so much. And I was so thrilled. You have no idea. I mean, I was in the company of so many extraordinary women who had started businesses during COVID, and to win that Wildcat or business, new business of the year award is what the Wildcat is, was I was just so blown away, and I still am. And when I look at that award in my study, I'm like, I can't even believe we did it. I can't believe I won it. And I knew that for me, it was never just about me because I couldn't do all of this, the magazine and the podcast and without incredible support around me. Right. And I think for every woman in small business, everybody in small business really, but my arena's women, I guess. So every woman who's a small business owner, a new business owner, having that kind of support and network is just so important. How have you found that?
Well, for me, I suppose I must admit that I was just a little bit of a social media avoider. I really tried to prioritize my time, and I always felt like social media sucked too much time. And then once you launch a small business, you have to leap in. So I had to move from being just on Facebook to having a Facebook business page and Instagram. And I went in with a little bit of a jaded view. And I really didn't expect it to maybe be real, because the only sort of Instagrammers I'd met had been, I guess, really, really high level influencers with millions of followers that would come to Far North Queensland on holiday. But didn't find it relatable. I couldn't relate, and I couldn't relate to, I guess, a lot of the behaviors for photos, and I don't know. So I went in with a little bit of a jaded perspective. And the thing I discovered in social media is that even out there on that digital platform, your tribe migrates to you and you migrate to them, because even though I struggled a little bit with that maybe huge influencer demographic, I discovered that 40s, 50s, 60s women in the arena of Instagram were all there on a genuine platform to encourage and lift each other up. And there's an amazing like-minded platform that's the same as what you find face-to-face. And it wasn't expected at all. And I've just loved having that natural growth on Instagram and finding so many like-minded, amazing people that, a rising tide lifts all ships. We're all there together to build up what we do.
It's so true. And I think for me too, because as you say, it's a necessity. It really is a business necessity now. We're on Facebook for both the Good Girl Confessional and WB40, and we're on Insta, and we've just started a TikTok page. Hold me. But you know what? I'm loving it. And I think what it's really done for us is be able to reach so many incredible women, to be part of our community and to help other women rise up and feel good about themselves. And as you say, do it on a genuine platform. We've got incredible women who come in and write for this magazine who are real, genuine, beautiful, incredible people, and women who are guests on this podcast, exactly the same, and making these people visual, right? Putting their faces up and saying, this is who this person is. And one of the big things we chose to do with the podcast, which we didn't do initially and it came later, was to actually start going onto YouTube as well. Because in truth, if we wanted to, our whole narrative is really that women over the age of 40, 50, 60 and beyond should be seen, their voices should be heard. But if you can't see these women, so we decided we'll go into YouTube as well. And it's been an incredible kind of thing to do, because the more women like us and like everyone like us who are seen and heard, the better. It makes for a better world.
We really have to do that, because one of the things I found when I first went onto Instagram was up here, I got so much backlash from people, because there's just a stereotype of it's fake and it's insecure and it's all about a false sense of perfection. And I got so much feedback from women of just that sort of contempt for Instagram and social media. And I decided, right, I'm going to make a really conscious effort. Sometimes I'll do just a little video blurb that I don't have any makeup and the lighting isn't right, and I don't have some perfect, little light ring around my camera, but I just do it anyway. I make mistakes. I stumble over my words. And I can't believe how many of those people initially that only went on Instagram under duress because I was doing it and they wanted to see what I was doing are saying, I love it when you do that. And it's so real. And I like the way you make it real. We really need to see women over 40, but we need to see us real. I'm so heartbroken with so many of the Hallmark movies. I'm a bit addicted to Hallmark and that demographic because I was just a extra on Dive Club.
You were. And thank you for telling us all about it in WB40. I loved it.
It was so fun sharing that. And it was so fun that set, because there were so many positive things happening. And it was just lovely to be an observer and see, even to see a director who was 8 months pregnant directing and being able to take leave.
Right? What?
Yeah.
And these are these tiny little things we see that we're so thrilled about that should be normal and should be normalized. But, it shows that times they are a-changing. Yeah,
I love it. I just love it. It's not even a big deal now. Like, you'd be asked about that to get a big red X in an interview when we were starting out.
Yep.
Love it.
True. Yeah. I love it too. And but I will say everyone should jump on board, and I'll put all the links to your Instagram, Facebook, everything. But your Instagram is an absolute bloody delight because you're so delightful. You are so positive. You are so happy, and you are so inspiring. And I really love that. One of the things that I love most about you, Sandy, is that you are a massive champion for other women, and you shout out to other women, myself included, lots of women all the time. I just love that generosity of spirit. I think you're extraordinary.
Thank you. And it's so nice to hear that, because I'm not doing anything right on Instagram. I'm not doing any of the things you're supposed to do. And friends that know people in social media, they'll send me things and point out, that maybe I don't have a perfect grid, or there's so many things I'm not doing right on Instagram. And you mentioned with your blog being taken down. Well, I can't actually do paid advertising on Instagram because I got taken down because the first one I tried to pay for was one that mentioned breast cancer. And breast is one of the banned words on Instagram. I spent half a day trying to get through to someone to get me back into the allowed. And I just thought, no, I'm not gonna pay for ads. I'm just gonna see how it grows. And was recently at a marketing expo in Cannes, and one of the digital media people said, well, what do you mean? How are you not paying for ads? But you're growing. So I'm not doing anything the way you're supposed to. So it just makes me feel really good that people do maybe like that natural approach that's maybe not ticking all the boxes.
But I think it works, Sandy. And I mean, for you, like, I feel like you are the face of your product, and it absolutely works. And this whole, everything that you talk about is actually how you live your life, and it's lovely. And it's so, yeah, everybody should jump on board your Instagram page because it makes me smile all the time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Well, and
So,
there's much to be said for that and for smiling, because I recently saw someone did like a Maslow's hierarchy of learning, but it was a mental health hierarchy.
oh yeah.
And they made hope the top of the hierarchy. And I just thought, it is so important, that thing, to not lose hope and to just breathe and to know that tomorrow's another day, and just to find that quiet, well, just like with Sue from Me Time, find whatever that thing is in the quiet of your soul that makes you smile and makes you have joy. And it doesn't have to be a huge bubbling over smile. It can just even be that little tiny curl of your lip of contentment from just finding even 2 minutes for yourself of something that you love.
Yeah. And I just love that. I think one of the things, and obviously, we're human. No one's going to be happy 24/7. Things happen, life happens, life, whatever. We get that. But I think finding one thing a day to be, to either find joy in or to be grateful about, or something that makes you smile is pretty good, and whether that's a piece of Vegemite toast or getting to do a really cool podcast with epic women, we've all got to find whatever our joy is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I love, you can just feel your joy in your podcast. And it's always so exciting when you've got a new podcast about ready to drop, because like, where am I going to find out? Oh, I think I'm going to have to go for a drive today. It's always.
I love that. I love that. You're a podcast driver. You know what I mean? Like, for me, it's like I put the headphones in. I listen to so many podcasts. I'm a huge champion for other women who podcast, because it's such a cool kind of thing. And I feel like it's yet another realm that was originally quite male dominated, and women in our age demographic were kind of late adopters to the podcast. And even when I started mine, I have really fabulous friends, incredibly supportive and really supportive women around me. But a lot of them kind of, what? What is it? Why are you doing a podcast? Who's going to listen to that? Right. And I will admit, when I started this podcast, I honestly, my driving motivation and my passion was to share the stories of other women. So I'm hugely proud that it just keeps growing. But when I started it, I remember that very first episode thinking, I don't know if anyone really is going to listen to it. So I suppose we'll wait and see. But it gave me so much joy to do it and to speak with really cool women, and it still does. It's just, yeah, that's my happy place.
And here you are now. We all can't wait for the next one.
So Sandy, you
Yes.
you recently, tell me all about your 50th birthday.
Yeah, well, my 50th birthday was so cool. And I hope that Women Beyond 40 readers are thinking, oh, I should do something big for my 50th. Hey, I remember that Sandy from up north. That was a cracker of an idea. I'm going to do it. For my 50th birthday, we started 2 weeks after my 49th birthday. And for 50 consecutive weeks, we had a different bottle of champagne each week with somebody who has meant something to me in my life through the past 50 years.
I love that. I love that idea. I wish I'd thought of that.
It was so amazing. And it just kind of started as a bit of an off the cuff idea. And it turned out to be so wonderful, celebrating the whole year. It was just, you looked forward to it every week. And with like a celebration champagne bottle of chocolates. Sometimes it was we did the Edenvale de-alcoholized champagne. We did one that was a magnum of Heineken.
Wow.
Yeah, so you could turn it, and it didn't have to be champagne every time. And it doesn't have to be champagne for someone. They can celebrate a different plant each week. Maybe give a plant to 50 people that have met something in their life and have a coffee with them, or plant the plant together. but something significant, and make it happen every week. And my cup was just overflowing by my 50th. It was phenomenal.
Your cup runneth over literally, not just figuratively, but I love that. I love that you did that. That is epic and awesome.
And it was so cool. We did lots of face-to-face ones. We actually went out to Gundawindi for one in outback Queensland. I had one champagne with an air hostie up at 40,000 feet.
Oh my God, you are epic. You really are. I love that idea.
Actually, one lady I wanted to have one with was 12,000 miles away. So her daughters and one of the son-in-laws helped her become au fait with technology. And she learned how to do FaceTime, which was just so cool. She did it all on her own, which is awesome.
I love that, because in the confessional, we should really confess too that at the beginning of this podcast, we had massive technical problems. I was like, I don't know if this is going to happen, but it happened.
There's always more than one answer.
Oh, you got to love tech. But I love that idea. I love the 50th. I might actually adopt that. I'm 52 this year, but when I get to 59, I'll do it on the lead up to my 60th, because how exciting. Yeah. I love it. I love that idea.
Yeah, absolutely. I reckon, well, even 55. 55.
Even 55. Why not? Why not? You're a constant ball of joy and love, and I think you're epic. I love you. So thank you for joining me today.
Absolute pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Good Girl Confessional podcast. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is brought to you by WB40, Women Beyond 40 magazine. Available now at WB40.com. The Good Girl Confessional podcast is available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you listen to quality podcasts. We're also now available on YouTube. We chat with really interesting women about their hard-won wisdom, but it really helps us if you can subscribe, like, and share the podcast. Thanks so much for your support. Bye for now.